All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the New Breed podcast. Not the world's first, not the world's only, but definitely the world's best podcast focusing solely on the concept of new metal and new metal bands. I am one half of your hosting partnership, Jay Horskow, and with me I have Tim Anderson Jr. Tim, how are you?
I'm great, man.
Do you think the listeners by this point, Tim, can tell when we're like 3 episodes in and 40 beers deep? Because does it start to show, do you think, by chance?
Probably. I mean, I'm feeling a lot better than the last episode we did. I'll tell you that much.
We got to start releasing stuff out of recording sequence so people don't know. So, topic of this episode is going to be pretty interesting. Most of you, if you're familiar with Marvel Comics used to have a What If series where they would do a what if something happened. What if Spider-Man's Uncle Ben had never been killed? What if Superman had never been born? We're going to do what if new metal questions. So what if certain things that did happen in the history of new metal didn't? And what did Tim and I think would have been the likely result? So we're going to start off with the first question. Tim, what if Korn went with Ross Robinson for Follow the Leader? So those of you who aren't familiar may not remember, Korn went with Ross Robinson for both self-titled and for Life is Peachy. For the third album, which is arguably their biggest album that broke them into the mainstream, they went with a producer completely different. So, Tim, what do you think would have happened with Korn if they went with Ross Robinson and Indigo Ranch for their third album as opposed to what they did do?
They don't catapult to success right away like they did on that record. I just feel like Ross would have made that record sound more Life is Peachy-ish. I think he would have kept with what was good and what was selling records. I think he was just that producer that would have did that. And I think maybe Korn seen that and they said, you know what? We could write some more radio-friendly hits and we can catapult to where they eventually are now. And I think it was a good, thing that they did. But to me, I'm more of, I wish they would have went with Ross because I want another record like Life is Peachy. I want another record like Self-Titled. But let's be honest, I'm not in Korn, so I have no say.
And where they are is arguably because of that third album, the success of Freak Unleashed, the success of Got the Life, the success of the Family Values Tour. However, Tim, I will agree with you. Life is Peachy, and we talked about this when we did the deep dive. To me, Life is Peachy is really the self-titled 1.5. It's not a second album. There is not enough difference between the first and second album to make it noticeable. I really would have liked to have seen what had happened if Korn went with Ross in their third album. Because remember, at this point, Ross has done Limp Bizkit. He's done Human Waste Project. He's done
Sepultura.
Sepultura. Like, he's done a bazillion different records. So coming in with the third album, I guarantee you he gets a totally different vibe out of them.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say not totally different. He gets a stronger, more aggressive vibe out of them.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been very, very fascinating to hear what it sounds like.
It probably would have been their heaviest record.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah.
It would have been fucking heavy.
And I thought about that. I was like, because the production team they went with was kind of like, if you listen to the records that they produced after and before that, it was all, stuff that was on the radio, hitting rock hits all the time that's getting played 3 times an hour. So they went for that with Freak on a Leash, Got the Life. And them songs were absolutely great, don't get me wrong. I used to hate Freak on a Leash, but I actually do like it more now.
Well, you hate it now because you've heard it so many bazillion times.
It's kind of like more human than human, you know what I mean? And I know that's not new metal, but we have to do a breakdown of that record because that's my favorite metal record.
Which one, Astro Creep?
Yes.
I will definitely do that. Chicken Run Blastorama, there's some good tracks on that.
So good.
So while we're talking about Korn, right?
Yeah.
I hated Got the Life when it came out.
Me too.
In hindsight, it is a brilliant song.
It's one of their best songs.
Basically go for a disco 4 on the floor. Fucking David is in the pocket. It has got that hip hop bounce to it. It's fucking great. And Fieldy, by the way, if you're looking for a joke, go to the Fieldy isolated bass tracks on YouTube, right? Like that motherfucker, he's just slapping the fucking thing.
I'm writing that down right now.
Sounds like me on the weekends when the wife's not around. But I didn't like it when I first heard it. Now going back, I think it's one of their stronger songs.
It is. It's a very, very catchy, great song. I love that track. The chorus is so fucking good in that song. But I don't think if Ross produces this record that you get them 2 songs. I really don't.
No. And who was? Do you remember who the producer was, Tim?
Yeah, we talked about it before. I just forget what his name is. Look it up real quick.
Yeah. Hey, good podcasting here.
Hey man, there's no rules in this shit. We can do whatever the hell we want.
Hey, if Jimmy Ferrari can record at a fucking construction site with no handheld mics, we can get away with doing what we're doing here. This is guerrilla podcasting.
Oh, dude. Fucking records at a fucking construction site where they're building the next Twin Towers and shit.
Shout out to Jimmy. I love him to death. But that one episode with Walter where he was in the fucking shake place or like the smoothie place, it sounded like some of the fucker had forks in the blender and they were blending the forks. It was terrible. So this was Steve Thompson and Toby Wright.
Yes, Toby Wright. There you go.
So this is, again, getting way away from Ross, right? This is professional producers, right? Like Steve Thompson did Guns N' Roses. He did Madonna. He did Tesla. Toby Wright did Alice in Chains, Metallica. So these are record label guys.
These are hit machine producers.
Yes. And this is why they were able to go from the Life is Peachy, All Day I Dream About Sex, success on MTV, notoriety to the breakout. TRL had to retire the fucking video for Freak on a Leash because it was at the top for too long.
And I find that to be very annoying that they had to do that. Let that thing go as far as it can, you know?
I wonder what is he doing these days, Carson Daly?
Well, he had like a late night show for a while, and it was always on at like 12:30 at night, but he always had like repeats on there. It's actually had some cool stuff on there. You know what's cool? Well, that dude Matt Groening, is that his name, or is that the dude who did Beavis and Butthead? I always
Matt Groening did Simpsons. Who do you think of? Matt Pinfield?
Matt Pinfield, yes, my bad. He has a podcast, or he did. I don't know if he still does, but he always interviews people like that, Blink-182, Korn, and it's really fucking good, actually. So check that out. Write that down. I said Matt Groening. That's fucking hilarious, Matt Groening. I was like, wait a minute, did he do Beavis and Butthead? That's even funnier.
That's Mike Judge.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
So let's go, Tim. Let's go to question 2. Right. So we talked about Korn. Then we're going to talk about the other band at the top of the New Metal Holy Three. What if Wes Borland never takes the sabbatical and leaves Limp Bizkit?
This is another great question.
What happens after Chocolate Starfish?
I honestly think that they would have been just as terrible, to tell you the truth.
So I am a big Limp Bizkit fan. I've been searching for merch for them. My brother probably still has that Limp Bizkit windbreaker that we went halvesies on, so I got to find if he still got it because it's not going to fit, but I'm going to wear it to a fucking concert. And Chris Striegel's going to punch me in the nose. It's fine. I'm going to deserve it. I think they probably would have put out – so the first album was their breakout album, $3 Bill Y'all. Then they had Significant Other, which was big for them.
Their best record.
Then they had Chocolate Starfish, which was big. This is Rollin'. This is My Generation. This is the was this the Take a Look Around, which is the Mission Impossible?
Yes.
Which, let's take a second and think about fucking Limp Bizkit put out a song for a fucking Mission Impossible album. Mission Impossible movie, whatever. I think if Wes Borland doesn't leave, they continue along the same trajectory, and maybe they hit that Korn, Slipknot, System of a Down, Sheds and Arenas tour layer where they just continue. Now, Wes leaves. We know that Wes leaves. He comes back for the Ross Robinson produced EP, which I think is fucking awesome. At me if you disagree so I can show up at your house again and shit up your own ass. I think it's great.
Is that the one with Sammy on drums?
No, not yet. Not with Sammy Siegler, not yet.
I think that if he stays in the band, though, I feel like Wes is that guitar player that would have been like, you know what, let's do something completely different. And they would have shit the bed on there. Like, it would have been so, like, out of
weird,
the norm weird.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because I kind of feel like he would have just been like, we got to change this up instead of Fred whining the whole fucking time like he always does. And so I kind of feel like that might have been great that he wasn't in the band. You know what I mean? Even though Ross is supposed to do their new album, which apparently is done, I heard.
Stampede of the Disco Elephants. I have all the demos that have leaked. They cover Ministry's Thieves. I got to give them credit for covering Ministry's Thieves. Limp Bizkit covering Ministry's Thieves is infinitely better than Crazy Town covering Refused's New Noise. And I'll leave it at that.
I fucking hate Refused. At me for that one. I hate Refused. I fucking hate that band. Ugh.
You didn't like fucking the comeback album Freedom was great.
Nah. That band sucks.
All
they can shit up their own ass. I hate that band.
We'll unpack that in a different episode. So bringing it full circle, new metal wise, do you remember who replaced Wes Borland?
I don't. I was just going to ask you that.
Mikey, who replaced the guy from Snot.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So when what's his name? What was his name that left the ball guy? Sonny Mayo leaves Snot.
Yep.
Mike Smith, I think, replaces him. He then moves on to replace Wes Borland. And let's be honest here, Wes Borland is a big part of why Limp Bizkit sounded the way they did, because he was a little bit nuts, but he's a great guitar player.
So really, really underrated guitar player.
Horribly. So if Wes Borland never left Limp Bizkit, they come out with a fourth album that continues that trajectory, and maybe at this point they never take the sabbatical. They just keep going and they blast through everything.
You could be I tend to disagree on that one. But you might be right.
Or maybe they just blow dick on the fourth album. Who knows? Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 in that regard.
So now we're going to go to question number 3, Tim. What if Chimera sticks with new metal on their second album?
They fall victim to breaking up very quick. I think that when they put Pass Out of Existence out, it was a game changer. That record is perfection in new metal, in my opinion. Let's get that right, people. In my opinion, it is perfection in new metal. That record is crushingly, devastatingly heavy. Rob Arnold is a goddamn riff master. I don't care what anyone says. I can't wait to get him on here, hopefully. But like I said, they fall victim and they lose out. I think them going in the metal, more traditional metal route was a great fucking call for them. And I think it made their career go where it was. I mean, they were a huge band after that.
Yeah.
Very big band after that.
I would agree 100% with what you said. They hit at so we've talked about this, Tim, where some bands get big and some bands don't just because they hit the right thing at the right time. Chimera, with moving away from Pass Out of Existence into The Impossibility of Reason, was that the second
Which
album?
is an absolute masterpiece.
It's a fucking banger. They hit just at the right time where new metal was going away and metalcore was the new wave of American heavy metal, right?
Yep.
Chimera, Shadows Fall, Lamb of God, Kill Switch, all of this stuff is hitting. Unearth is hitting at the same time. So they timed it perfectly. It was serendipity. They did. I would argue that they didn't do it on purpose. And I can't wait, Rob Arnold, if you're listening, we're going to get you on the show, brother. I bet you they just happened to hit the right notes at the right time.
Yep.
I think you're right. I think if they had done a second album that was way more new metal than the first, they would have kind of been left as the taste changed and the trends moved. But instead, they ended up with a monster album that actually broke them big.
Absolutely. And then the record after that even just plateaued them huge, if that's the right word to say. It made them even bigger. I actually watched both of their documentaries last night on YouTube because my new TV, I can just hit YouTube on the remote and it comes right up. I fucking love that. Technology is the greatest thing ever. I love it. I was half shit-faced. I watched both their documentaries. Great stuff, man. But Impossibility, like if they would have if that record would have been straight new metal with the 7 strings, I feel like they would have been that band that was just like, oh yeah, I know I like Chimera, but like, I've heard it before.
Can we talk about getting shit-faced and sitting home and watching YouTube on your TV, how there's few things in life that are as enjoyable as that?
So good.
Oh, you can just bounce around. Like I've watched, I bastardized the Hate 5-6 live stuff, preserving hardcore. What was this? The channel that I sent you that you said, you fucking idiot, I've sent this to you 3 times already. What's it called?
Liberated Tape Archive.
Liberated Tape Archive, right? Like it is when you hit the YouTube button, you're like, oh, let me watch.
Dude, let's get into
this.
me. Let's get into me sending you that 3 times now. So, Jay, people listening, Jay is the fucking worst at reading and answering messages. But he's just as bad on text messaging, so it's like, whatever, you just pick one. And I prefer to just hit Facebook because I'm always on there with bands and all that shit. Anyway, so I sent him the Liberated Tape thing when it just started. And I'm like, I'm expecting Jay to be like, yo, this is cool. Doesn't say anything. Then I sent it to him again. 2 months later,
I'm a fucking terrible person.
I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? There's so many good fucking things on here. Then he posts it and goes, look what I found. I'm like, is this fucking guy serious right now?
Dude,
I'm like, dude.
I am terrible. I mean, you're talking to a guy whose voicemail has been full for 3 years and I refuse to empty it because
You're probably one of them. You're one of them guys on your phone. Your email says like 30,000, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't actually. Believe it or not, I'm anal with that sort of stuff. I clean it out.
Okay.
You know what it is? I have ADHD. I know I do. It's undiagnosed, but I can't pay attention. And I will see a message pop up and I will read it and I will acknowledge it in here, but I won't actually type out a response. I'm a fucking terrible person. We've already discussed this. So that's why it's not spite. It's not malice. You know, Einstein said, never attribute to genius what can easily be attributed to stupidity. It's pretty much stupidity.
No, it's just, I just laugh now because I'm like, I'm going to send him this
You're
link.
like, dude, you sent me this 3 times. I'm like, fuck me. What an asshole.
You should go back in your messages. And I've even tagged you on the group page in Ill Street News. Like, yo, check this out, man. This is like a gold mine of, there's like orgy videos, El Nino, Machine Head. There's
I have literally 16 tabs open right now from YouTube from all the videos I want to get around to watching.
So good, man.
Speaking of which, we probably need to do an episode on trash nu metal bands.
Oh yeah.
I came across a band that I forgot even existed, and they hit every single nu metal stereotype to the point where I actually downloaded the album and listened to it and giggled the entire time.
Is it Crossfade?
It's Crossbreed. It definitely
a crossbreed.
Is. Oh, it's terrible. So let's get from terrible nu metal, right? So this is a question that really, for me personally, I would love to get the alternate universe, right? Because there's multiple. If you know anything about string theory and quantum mechanics, there are multiple universes going simultaneously, and this is a universe I would like to get into. What if Lynn Strait from Snot is not killed in that car crash?
Oh, dude, this was one of my favorite questions to answer on here. They would have been the premium rock band of that.
Yes.
They would have been huge. They would have went straight rock. They would have been huge, like I said. They'd be all over the radio, like I said. They would have put out 3 more albums but they would have fizzled out. The world would have said, "Fuck them. We're done with them." After like,
yeah, 3. I think they would have fallen by the wayside, right? Because tastes changed. However,
yeah,
I think that second album would have been a fucking monster.
Yep.
We've already talked about my love for Absent and how that is the best song they've ever done. Ross Robinson produced it. If Lynn Strait isn't killed in that car crash with the dog that's on the cover of the first album, Dobbs, R.I.P., both of them, you have a Ross Robinson produced second album. I think they go heavy on the funk side. I think they introduce the idea of funk as a big part of the music that is acceptable at the time. I think they get fucking massive. And it breaks my heart to think about that because I love that first album. I loved Absent. It's just one of the things where the world just didn't work out in their favor. But I think you're right, Tim. I think they would have been System of a Down levels huge. They would have done for weird Armenian shit. Like, they would have done for funk what System of a Down did for weird Armenian shit, or Limp Bizkit did for hip-hop influenced fucking rappy shit.
Yeah, they would have been like a 3 Days Grace kind of band where, you know, they put out the records where everybody loves them and then they fall apart kind of band.
Yeah, or they would have just disbanded because the personalities were too volatile and they couldn't make it work. But yeah, this question when we were working jointly on this fucking agenda, this is the one that actually breaks my heart because I love that fucking band. And I remember reading this on an internet message board that he was killed, and I was completely speechless. Like,
yeah, it's terrible,
are you fucking
man.
kidding me? Like that they had a road above them. It's terrible. So everybody, again, Tim and I have said it before. We both said it. Tim stole this pick from me on Nu Metal's Hidden Gems. Go back and listen to Absent. on the, what is that, Strangeland soundtrack?
Yep.
Yes. Sandwiched between, I think it's Coal Chamber and Day in the Life, which is another band I want to get into. Brilliant song. So, next question, Tim. What happens to nu metal if Ozfest never happens?
It doesn't gain the popularity it did. That was the launching pad for nu metal, if you ask me. After Korn, you had Limp Bizkit, you had Deftones at the same time, but after that, you had Ozfest. And that was pretty much where, if you listen to the previous episodes we talk about, that is where nu metal gains its popularity. If you don't have Ozfest, you don't have the big boom. Sorry, right. You just don't.
No, you don't, because at the same time that Korn and Limp Bizkit and all that stuff is coming out, you have Ozfest, which is in its inaugural years, grabs Coal Chamber, grabs Powerman 5000, grabs Drain STH. The second year they grab Ultraspank, Incubus, Snot. They grab all those bands. System of a Down opened. So without Ozfest, nu metal, I think you're right, Tim. It does not become a thing. It's more of a passing cultural fad. A lot like how the record labels tried to make electronica the next big thing at the end of the aughts, and it never really caught on. Aside from The Prodigy, who, I'm sorry, Fat of the Land is a fucking brilliant album. You don't like it? At me. Come to my house. I'm in South Jersey. We'll fight it out. It's a brilliant album. But
I'm going to go back and listen to them.
Oh, it is Fat of the Land is a brilliant album. But without Ozfest, nu metal does not become the thing that it is, because this is the same time where Lollapalooza is starting to fizzle out. The Horde Festival spins up. You have Horde, you have Lollapalooza, you have Ozfest, you have all this other stuff. The Perry Farrell Enid Festival, date my fucking self here. All that stuff happened at the same time. And without Ozfest, it just doesn't go anywhere.
You don't have metalcore, the metalcore explosion without Ozfest either. Let's get that straight.
Nope, because
2004-ish, 5-ish, you don't have the metalcore explosion without Ozfest.
We did the Ozfest deep dive. They transitioned very well from nu metal to metalcore to the later years of Ozfest. They basically went just wherever the trend was taking them.
Absolutely. That is another great what if. There's so many good ones on here. You know what? Since it's kind of like the middle of the episode, I want to put the one that I put in here later because I feel this is a good one for the middle. What if Korn never used 7 strings? And I'm going to have you start that out.
So if Korn doesn't use 7 strings, I think they're going to try and drop tune with a 6 string. But I don't think they get the – I don't know if they'd be as big as they are. Because when you listen to that drop tune 7, right? One of the things that catches you on blind is that guitar tone, the where it's like guttural, almost like it's not the brown note, but it is bowel moving, right? It's a very heavy, low tone. And I don't know if they'd been able to get that with a 6 string. Like, what were their other options? They would have used the Boss HM2 pedal and turned into like fucking Entombed. Like, what were the other options at that point to get heavy?
I don't know. I mean, do they tune down to like drop B? I mean, it's not. It's
but at that point, the fucking strings are falling off your guitar. They're so loose, right? It's like fucking.
Well, when you could put heavier gauge strings and just make the guitar worthy of doing that. I mean, it's simple, but like at the same time, if you put that tuning into it and you write them riffs, they don't sound nearly as grimy or heavy. It just doesn't happen. And without the 7 string on there, you don't. They're just another fly by night band. It's a huge difference with that, man. And when I thought of that, I was like, man, that's a great fucking question right there.
So let me ask you this, Tim. In hindsight, with the use of the 7 string and the use of the drop tuning, do you think the Korn Sepultura back-to-back 1-2 punch? Do you think that helped cement that sound into the world, right? Because you had a brand new band introducing a brand new sound. And then you had a well-established 4 albums deep band, 5 albums deep in all the EPs, using almost the same sound. Do you think Sepultura's utilization of the Korn sound and Royce Robinson helped cement that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because that was the sound of the late 90s. I mean, if you don't, like I said, you don't have the 7, you don't have the late 90s. You don't have the band's popularity, which is surprising that Sepultura didn't go the 7 string route, because you think they heard all that and you would think, He only uses 4 strings on the fucking guitar anyway.
I was just gonna say we already
yeah.
talked about Max only uses 4. Like, what the fuck does he need 7 for?
Well, yeah. Well, he would just have the first 4 of them. But I'm surprised that they didn't do that, and I'm thinking that Andreas was probably the reason for that.
Probably, yeah.
He was probably like, "Fuck all that shit. Like, we don't need to be flashy like that." But I mean, you don't have that sound, especially on the later part of the record, because you like the later parts or the second half of the record.
Yeah, I'm a second half guy. Yeah,
like them songs like "Helmet in the Bush" and "Predictable." You don't have that sound there. It just doesn't sound as groove oriented either.
Yeah.
So to me, that question is probably the biggest what if on here.
And if Korn never uses the 7 string, does Meshuggah go to the 8 string? Does Tony Danza and Amur and Josh Travis go to the 9 string? Right, and they do that. He does that. I'm sorry, Josh Travis's work with Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza is fucking insane. It is like mind blowing. The fretwork that he does.
What does Adam say about the fretboard gymnastics thing?
Yeah, fretboard gymnastics. I call it masturbatory guitar noodling. It's fucking
yeah. Well, a lot of that is pedals and stuff too that they add in there, like the drop pedals and shit like that. True. It's kind of like Tom Morello and Rage Against the Machine has, like, everyone calls him a god, but most of that shit is just pedal fucking effects.
Oh yeah, it's pedal and him doing weird shit with the guitar that most normal people would never think to do.
Yeah, like an Allen key on your string kind of thing, bullshit.
Hold on, let me drag my fucking 13% fucking vanilla porter up the strings and see if that makes a different sound.
Yeah. So now I wanted to add this too. Now on Adrenaline, what if they put like a 7 string on that record? Now, how different does that sound, and how much of an impact does that make?
I think the sound gets chunkier. I think the board opening riff gets louder and lower.
Yeah.
But then I would question, and fresh off recording that Adrenaline deep dive, Tim, maybe does it make the Deftones too much too fast? Because then you'll have that chunky drop tune 7 with Chino's bizarro vocals at the time. That might have been a bridge too far for a lot of people, and they may not have gotten the attention that they got.
Or they would have just been called a copycat.
Right.
Yeah. See, this is a very, very deep question, and people listening, fucking email in and tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that is a very fascinating question, right? Or what if Korn just said fuck it and they went straight to the 9 string, invented it in front of Meshuggah, and then yeah. got rid of Fieldy and they did the bass on the guitar. That would be
that's fucking hilarious, man.
So, all right, Tim. So next question we got here: what if the Deftones go with Ross Robinson for Adrenaline as opposed to Terry Date? So we just talked about this, right? And we talked about the song Fire, which is the hidden song on Adrenaline.
Fist.
Which is Fist. Shit. For real is the one before it. We talk about Fist, produced by Ross Robinson. It sounds nothing like the rest of the album. The guitar is different. The vocals are different. It's got a totally different vibe. And you made the remark in the last episode that this is where the Deftones eventually end up sounding with stuff like Corneo Can, with stuff like Diamond Eyes. What if they don't go with Ross for the first? What if they do go with Ross for the first album? Do they flame out? What happens?
I don't think you get Adrenaline with Ross. I think you get more of the White Pony-ish record with them. I think they would experiment it more with him because he's more of a complex, weird dude. Because you hear that on Life is Peachy, you hear all the, all that weird effects they were using. I think you would have got that more on the Deftones record. I think it would have been more of a relaxed. Because you're from California, you're going to record in California. You're going to get more of that relaxed vibe. I think up there it was more of a, let's put out the record that's going to impress kind of thing. You know what I mean? I think if you go with Ross, you go with the record of how they were feeling at the time. Because when you get a song like Fist from them, you kind of feel like, hey, this is what they wanted to do. So I think it would have been a completely different change. And I think maybe they don't get signed. Maybe Maverick doesn't come calling. I don't know. It's a very hard question to answer.
It's an interesting one. I'm not sure if Maverick comes calling. I'm not sure if they ever get the level of success that they ended up with, because you remember, if you say that, what's the name of the song, Fist? If Fist is where they end up, maybe they don't go through Around the Fur and the White Pony to get to Fist. Yeah. So I'm not so sure that, to your point, I'm not so sure that they get as successful as they were.
Well, if you listen to the Linus demo before that, there's a lot of grunge on there. There's a lot of reggae parts on there. So they were definitely a different band before Adrenaline.
Do you have, while we're talking about the Deftones, do you have the special edition bootleg? It's actually titled Special Edition to Deftones.
I don't think so. I probably have it in my MP3 stuff, but I don't have it.
Let me know if you do, because and if any of you listeners have it, please send it to me via zip file. I have a copy and I'd have to dig it out. It's all covers in the first half, and they cover South of Heaven. They cover Say It Ain't So, because fucking Chino's a big Weezer fan, and he nails Say It Ain't So. Okay, but you can tell a lot about a band by the bands that they choose to cover live.
Absolutely.
And the Deftones are one of those bands that they've done a whole B-Sides and Rarities album, but the bands that they cover live make them so much fun.
That B-Sides record is fantastic.
If you close your eyes right now, you hear Say It Ain't So by Weezer in your head, I know you can hear Chino doing the fucking chorus, right? Yeah. It just fits.
Yeah, I fucking absolutely love that No Ordinary Love cover.
It is fucking amazing.
So good.
Tim, maybe we should do a episode on just Chino's side projects.
Absolutely.
We could easily do an episode on his side projects, because some of the stuff, the song he did for the Raid 2, the what is it, Control something or other, fucking awesome. Like, he's got so much. Oh, whatever. We got to get Chino on the fucking show. Let's find his email right now and call him.
Let's do it.
So next question, Tim. Number 7, or number 8, I should say. What if Incubus doubles down on the stoner sound for their second album?
They fizzle out real quick. I think that whoever produced that second record saw the talent in that band and said, we can make you radio ready real fucking quick. Brandon Boyd already has the looks. He already has the voice. They fucking went out and did it, and it fucking paid off completely. That band's huge. They were huge after. They put out another new metal funky record. Nope. They fizzle the fuck out.
I would agree. As much as I love Science, I think Make Yourself is a perfect album.
It's so fucking good.
And then from that, they go to, I forget what the next album is, Morning View.
Morning View.
A Crow Left to Murder.
Yep.
And there's Light Grenades. They are brilliant. I have, Tim, I got to be honest, so getting aside here, I have a great memory. I used to do a luau at the end of the summer at the frat house I was living in college. And the second year we did it, we had a live band come, and they did a bunch of Incubus covers. We had 350 people at this fucking luau in the backyard of a frat house in Glassboro, New Jersey. The police show up, and they're like, do you have a permit for this? And I go, actually, officer, I do. And I pulled out the permit for the live music, the permit for the bonfire, the permit for everything. And they go through my paperwork, and they're like, you guys have a nice night. It was out of control. But that is a perfect radio album, a perfect rock album. It is brilliant. And the one after is just as brilliant. Crow Left to Murder, they kind of get weird. Light Grenades, they get even weirder. But I think you're right. I think if they don't double down with the stoner sound and the bongos and that shit, they don't go anywhere.
Nope. No, Make Yourself's a panty dropper record, man.
Yeah, well, and let's be honest here. The fact that he's hot and ripped and skinny. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, Carly fucking loves that. I think that's like her dream, lay. She was just down here letting the dog out. I wish she was still here because I would have her come on and say it, but I'm pretty sure that's her dream lay. Oh, yeah. Oh, she is right there. So she is right there. Carly, is Brandon Boyd still your dream lay? See, she just said I love him. Yeah. What did you say? Oh, the dog's going crazy too. But see, she
He
said
likes
that's
Brandon
her. She said that's her dream. That's her dream lay, basically. She said more 2000 Brandon Boyd though.
Okay. So make yourself Brandon Boyd more
And-
than
And that's what I just said too. Like back then, like he's got the looks and all that shit. So you put him in the front of the stage, and you got that right there. So that helps him out right there as well.
Absolutely. It draws. Let's be honest here. When you draw the opposite sex, the not dude contingent to a band, they grow exponentially.
Yeah. Because on Science, he was more of the hippie fucking guy. You know.
Yep. With the bongos and the whole nine. Yep.
Yeah. Definitely.
So.
And she says he's a hippie now too, though.
Well, you never leave it behind. You just kind of hide it to get famous.
Yeah.
So next question we got here, Tim. What if Machine Head does not go down the new metal path with the Burning Red? What if? So I guess the better question would be, what if Logan never leaves the band?
See, and this is going to be more of the same. What I just said with Incubus, they fizzle out. I mean, because I just don't think 3 albums. Jesus Christ, the dog's going crazy. I don't think 3 albums of the Burn or More Things Change, or what's the first record called again?
The first record was called Burn My Eyes.
Yeah, I don't think if you put 3 Burn My Eyes out, I think that they start getting stagnant. And I also think that Roadrunner kind of was more in their ear for the whole new metal thing with them. That's what I think happened with that. I don't know for exact if that's what it is, but I think that's what that was. Because if you think about it, they came back after the one record failed, which I think is horrible. It's their worst record ever.
Supercharger?
That record is absolutely terrible.
They should have punted that dude Aru Luster out of the band the first chance they got.
Yeah, that record is fucking awful. And I think he knows
around
that.
You. Oh, it's terrible.
What's that one song where he goes, or whatever.
American
awful.
Hawk. It's
Jesus
terrible.
Christ, it's awful. Like, they should erase that record off of iTunes. It's that bad. It's so bad.
Call Adam. He'll complain and say that they should erase the Atreyu catalog as well, but whatever.
Oh, yeah. He said they should unrecord it. That was the funniest thing I've ever heard. Yo, they should unrecord Supercharger. It's so bad.
It's terrible.
I want to do an episode of just how bad that record is. Write that down. We're doing it.
We have to get really drunk to do that one, but okay.
We're doing it. We should do that record in person because, we're doing that one in person, how bad that record is. Write that down in your fucking notes, people. Or see, this is where the beer's kicking in, right? But back to the Machine Head thing. I think they fizzle out again. I think going the new metal route on the Burning Red was a great idea, but you didn't have to go full force with the dreadlocks or the braids or whatever he did. He just went too far into it, and I think he made a mockery of himself.
So what do you think of this, Tim? So they go from the More Things Change, right, which is very aggressive. It was a great album, right? And then they go into the Burning Red, which is a little bit more new metal-y, but it still was a decent album. I love that record. I think it's pretty good. What if they, instead of doing Supercharger, do more of the Burning Red 2? Does that change their trajectory at all?
No, I think the really big fans were already pissed off enough. And then when Supercharger came out, they were even more pissed. That's why that record did pretty bad. I mean, that record it was bad in sale-wise.
Oh, it's terrible. And then they had Crashing Around You, which came out right before September 11. Yep. It was not a good look. But then again, they turned around and reinvented themselves, right? Through the Ashes of Empires comes out in 2005. The Blackening comes out behind that. And this is where they're playing, Rob is playing the bass guitar, baritone guitar. And then they have Unto the Locust. And they actually resurrected what career they had through the More Things Change, which is still a fucking great album.
Love it.
If you take the More Things Change, pause the Burning Red, pause Supercharger, and then go right through the Ashes of Empires, that's a career. That's a career.
Absolutely. And then they went back to the new metal shit on Catharsis, which was a flop. That was a shit record. I'm sorry.
So one of our next episodes, Tim, we're going to talk about bands that have new metal influence. Do you think that Catharsis works if they wait a couple albums and they
No.
do it closer to the new metal revival?
No, not at all.
No?
I think it flops just as bad.
We should get Rob Flynn on the show.
Let's do it, and we're going to
We
ask
should get
him.
Rob Flynn's wife, the hairdresser, on the show to talk about new metal hair trends.
Yeah. And then ask him why he jumped so many times at Dynamo 95.
And then we can bring up Crossbreed and how it's all a bunch of white dudes with colored dreads and see what she thinks about the whole nine.
There you go.
So here we go. Next question, number 10. What if Max never leaves Sepultura?
This is a very good one right here. They stay new metal.
You think?
I think Roots was a big record for them. I think if he didn't leave, I think they put out a couple more new metal records. I mean, look at Soulfly. That's what he wanted to do. That's what he was doing. I mean, that was his heart at the time. I mean, does Igor have a say in that? I don't know.
I think if Max doesn't leave Sepultura, the next album is way more aggressive, but way more tribal. So if you think about Roots, right, it's new metalish, but it's also very tribal. The Berenbow, that fucking stupid one string, looks like a fucking washboard thing that Mac likes to bang on.
Yeah.
I think it's more tribal, but I also think it's way more return to a more maybe punky metal sound.
Okay. So more of like a thrash element added in with the new metal.
The first album after Max leaves with Sepultura is Attitude, I believe, with Derek Green. And Against, that's it.
Yeah.
I knew it began with an A. Jesus.
Yeah.
How about
Attitude's
here, Jace?
a song. Yeah.
See what happens. I don't think that's a terrible album. I don't think Nation, the album after that, is terrible. So I'm not sure how much of that is Derek Green or how much of that is the band, but I think that if Max doesn't leave, the album after Roots has its new metal tone. It has the drop tuning. It has the 7 strings probably. Maybe Max plays 5 strings instead of 4. But I definitely think that there is a heavier influence to it.
You know, the more I think of it now that we're talking about, you're probably right on that. I think they go with the trends. But at the same time, it's Soulfly. You got to think it's basically Sepultura. It's basically the first Soulfly record is basically Roots 2.
Yeah.
It's just more of a new metal element.
And there's way more guests. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so, I would say not there's way more guests. The guests are not these weird, obscure Brazilian guys that Max had on Roots.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But you're right, though. There's more tribal stuff going on if they keep going. Definitely.
He digs out one of those weird fucking whatever.
Yeah, whatever the hell them things are called.
So, all right, Tim. Next question for you. Hot on the topic of Soulfly. What if Ozfest never goes full pay to play? What does that do to the bands they book? So for those listeners who aren't aware, within 2 or 3 years of Ozfest's inception, they go pay to play. So bands had to pay to get on the tour itself. There's a lot of interviews, a lot of Trusco bands when Ozfest makes the pivot to metalcore. There's a lot of examples of Ferret and Trusco bands, and even like the Black Dahlia Murder, having to come up with like $10,000 to buy onto the tour. So if Ozfest continues, right? So disregarding our previous question of what if Ozfest never happens, what if Ozfest continues? But you have to, Jesus, I'm getting fucking old and tired.
You're making me yawn almost.
I'm sorry, listeners. So what if Ozfest continues, but you don't have to pay to get on? What does that do? Does that change the bands they book? Does it change the trajectory of Ozfest? What happens?
This is really hard one for me to answer. I kind of feel like the whole pay-to-play thing was them losing money on the touring because as the years went on, the attendance was a lot lower. So I think someone came up with the grand scheme of, hey, let's charge bands to play, and then we can make money for our pockets. That's how I felt about that at that time, and it's kind of how I feel about it now. But I also feel like if that didn't happen, that you don't really get a change in bands. I think they would have rode what was hot.
Yes.
I mean,
I think you're right. I think new metal has a longer runway because the new metal bands would have kept buying on. Third Strike and Pulse Ultra, God help me, and 5.0 are still hammering down bands like Every Time I Die, Lamb of God, E-Town Concrete, Glassjaw, they're not buying on. They're
And
not
then
getting the chance.
And then let's think of it this way. Then you would have seen bands like Chimera go and stay nu metal because they would have had them tours to look forward to.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of – see, this is why this is a great fucking question. And you should email us at newbreedpodcast@gmail.com and tell us about what you think of that. Because if you think about that, like I just said, you would have had bands like Chimera to stay that way. You would have had bands like Seven Dust probably stay that way because I think Seven Dust kind of went more of the rock route after that too.
Yeah,
but you would have had bands like that stay that way, and I think Ozfest is the biggest contributor to that, like we said. So it doesn't change what I think that way. I just think it keeps it in a longer time frame. Is what I'm trying to say.
Tim, do you think without Ozfest we still get nu metal?
Yes.
You think?
Yeah, Korn because Korn came out before Ozfest.
Is nu metal as big?
No.
No.
There would have been I don't even think you have Slipknot without Ozfest.
Have you seen? Speaking of which, have you seen that video on YouTube? It's Slipknot's first show on Ozfest.
No, I got to check that out though.
Fucking insane! Like I remember the first time I saw Slipknot and being like, "What the fuck is going on this stage right now?" There's 9 dudes in jumpsuits and there's kegs and it's fucking insanity. Yeah, it's wild.
I'll never forget the first time I see Slipknot. That was a life-changing show.
Absolutely. So next question here, Tim. This is a little bit of comedy here. What if Genkos don't go out of style?
Oh, I have the perfect thing for this. We'd have an even bigger landfill problem than we do. That's the best. Our landfills would be filled with denim. Huge fucking denim.
You'd have like the 60-inch leg openings. Like you could fit a whole family of 4 in there.
Dude, you could use them pants. You could sew the end of them pants and have them as pouches for bags for anything. You know what I mean?
It's like a shoplifter's wet dream, right?
Yeah,
you just
it is.
drawstring the bottom of them, and then you can just fucking drop shit in there. Even a TV in there.
You can dump laptops in them things. Like you just steal a fucking Apple laptop from Best Buy in your Jenkos.
That's fucking unreal. Okay, so now to a more serious question. What if Chi never gets into the car accident and passes away, regards to the Deftones?
I don't think that you get a Diamond Eyes record. I don't think you get a Koi no Yokan record. I don't think you get, especially you don't get Gore. I think they would have stayed to the White Pony era. I think you would have had more of that era in there. I kind of think that Sergio has a very big influence on what they do now with the post-hardcore vibe.
Yeah.
I think that's where you get that from. Even though he's a replacement, a good replacement, he still has a say in what goes on, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think you don't get that with Chi. I think they stay harder with Chi. I think they stay faster with Chi. You get more of the screaming with him. I think Chino wouldn't have done as much of the softer, stuff he does nowadays.
Yeah, because Chi was the one who had the voice to actually do those yells.
I think he was actually a big presence in that band as well.
Along those lines, Tim, do you think we ever get to hear Lovers or Eros, whatever the?
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is what's going to happen, and I'm going to call this right now. When Deftones calls it a day, we're going to get Eros as their last record. They're going to call it a day. They're going to put one record out. They're going to call it a day, and they're going to end it with Eros, and that's it. That is what I think is going to happen.
So I would have thought by this point they would have released it, and they would have said, look, 100% of the profits, we're not going to tour off it. 100% of the profits go to Chi and Chi's family. We're going to make them whole. This was a point-in-time recording that unfortunately did not – our lives have gone a different way, but this is a remembrance of him. And I think – me personally, Tim, grabbing the most expensive fucking pre-order package, and I will buy it because I think that's a good cause.
Yep.
And I don't even give a shit that I don't have a fucking turntable. I'll buy the vinyl and give it to Adam Schmidt. I don't fucking care. But just I think that would be the right way to play things.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. They put out a $400 pre-order. Done. I mean,
Fuck it, with like the T-shirt, the sweatshirt, the fanny pack, the vinyl, the CD, the pot grinder, the fucking 6-foot bong, the fucking air dunks, whatever.
the UFO pants.
Yo, the caffeine pants. We gotta get the guy from Caffeine on the show.
Fucking give me a fucking one of Chino's hair links of hair. I don't fucking care. Whatever.
The
dude.
dreadlock from the guy from El Nino.
Yeah.
So next question. What if Dino never leaves Fear Factory? What does their sound do? So, Tim, refresh our listeners. He left after, was it Digimortal?
Yes.
And then they came out with Archetype.
Archetype, yep.
And what?
And then they did Concrete? No, Concrete was the Ross record.
Yeah.
That they put out. Yeah, so they put that out. They put out
Archetype, and it was another one. And then Dino comes back for...
Mechanize.
And then Genexus, which is a fucking great album.
They did Mechanize, then they did another one, then Industrialist. They did another one after. They did it was Mechanize, Industrialist,
and Genexus.
And Genexus, yeah.
Genexus is brilliant, by the way. It's fucking
so
brilliant.
Fucking
it's
good.
A great album. So I think if Dino never leaves Fear Factory, I think they get that industrialized sound earlier.
Yeah.
Right? Because they did a little bit into more of the new metal sound. I think they would have went right back to the heavy riffing very quickly.
Yeah, because Digimortal is a great record in my opinion, but it was a flop with the crowd.
Yeah. Because it was too new metal, it was too experimental, it was not.
And even Dino says that nowadays, like, yeah, it was a record I didn't really want to do, but the record label was pursuing it and they thought we could capitalize off it, which they didn't. People hated that record.
Nobody liked it.
That's their Burning Red right there.
We should we should create an article of if Machine Head Burning Red equals Fear Factory Digimortal equals what ? And let the fucking listeners fill it in.
There you go.
But I think you're right though. I think they go back to that staccato riffing quicker. I think I speak for both of us, Tim, but I think it's a fucking shame what's happened where they can't get along between Burton and Dino and Christian and Raymond. They can't find a way to just fucking swallow egos and make it work. Because if they did a fucking reunion tour doing Absolute in its entirety, it would just fucking destroy. Same thing goes for Sepultura. If Max and Igor reach out to fucking Andreas and Paolo and say, hey, we're going to do fucking Chaos AD in its entirety as a charity tour, I would spend an obscene amount of money to go see that.
And the bad thing is, Dino said on Twitter like 3 days ago, someone asked him about this, and he said, it's never gonna fucking happen. Stop asking me. He said, I hate them dudes. It's never gonna happen. So that's never happening. But if it did, it'd be just as big if there was a Pantera reunion. I mean, and look at it this way. When they did the demanufacture run through, it didn't sell many fucking tickets. You know why? Because you didn't have Herrera and you didn't have Wolbers on there, or Wolbers, whatever the fuck your name.
Yeah.
It makes a difference when the two people who were originally on the record aren't playing it, because you're going to get a whole different vibe on there. And you did when you seen them live. It wasn't as good.
Absolutely. I was lucky enough to see the original lineup play Demanufacture at the WSOU 10th anniversary birthday bash, and it was fucking bananas. Mm-hmm. Burton has a voice that is uniquely identifiable.
Have you ever heard the Colin Richardson stuff that he mixed for? It's on Hate Files.
I don't.
There's two Colin Richardson, because Colin Richardson was originally the mixer of Demanufacture before they had Rice Filber do it, and he had a completely different vibe on the vocals for Burton. So if you go and listen to Hate Files,
I gotta check that out.
There's two songs. It's Body Hammer. It's Body Hammer and Zero Signal.
And what's the difference, Tim? Is it more organic, or like if you had to put it into words to describe it, how would you describe it?
The mix on the music is pretty much dead on with Rice's, but the vocals are completely different. And I'll tell you what, the Colin Richardson shit is, I'm so happy they did away with that because it's trash.
Fuck, now I'm gonna dig.
He did the worst. What he made his vocals sound very commercial. And it's like, oh, no. I'm so happy that Dino was smart enough to go, no fucking way are we doing it this way. And stuck with Rice.
Rice is Frontline Assembly?
Frontline Assembly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Who
he
also
did that,
was
yeah.
the keyboardist, effects guy for Nail Bomb in
Yep.
their live set.
I think he had something to do with Skinny Puppy as well.
Which I'm sorry, Tim. Maybe we do a deep dive on that fucking album alone. That Nail Bomb live album is a fucking monster. It's not new metal. I don't care. It's fucking great. And then we're gonna get Chris in here to talk fucking Skinny Puppy, Frontline Assembly, Front 242, all that stuff.
KMFDM, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, eventually, let's be honest, we're gonna run out of new metal shit, and we're gonna go into all that shit. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, because not for nothing, I don't want to do an hour on fucking Pulse Ultra. Truth be told,
Exactly. Yeah. So people listening, we're eventually going to go into the more Roadrunner-ish shit like Fear Factory and,
Right. Well, new metal is also a quite nebulous term. So that is a blanket term applied to everything from 95 to like 2007. So you can get away with covering a lot of ground in that regard.
Absolutely.
So next question, Tim, and I think this is actually our last question. What if Slipknot was not signed to Roadrunner for that first album?
Well, I know for a fact that Roadrunner didn't want to sign Slipknot. They wanted to sign Mushroom Head.
Okay.
And Mushroom Head denied the offer, which is one of the dumbest things they ever did. And I know that Skinny has said it before. They didn't want to do it because they kind of felt like Roadrunner was just, making a mockery of them with the mask, which makes no fucking sense. If they're interested in what you're doing, why not sign the record label or contract and see what happens? And I know that is a huge, they want to punch themselves in the face kind of thing. And then Slipknot comes and they take that glory and now they're one of the biggest bands in the world. So you have to kind of feel like, wow, that was fucking stupid. Because don't get me wrong, the first couple Mushroom Head records are fucking good, man.
Yeah, I went back. I will be honest with you, Tim. I went back and I listened to the first couple, and I listened to some of their recent stuff.
The one I sent you?
Yeah, the comparison I'm going to make, Ghost, in the sense of a band that has a theatrical bent, but they still write solid songs, right? Their music is not bad. It's not like, oh my God, this is fucking terrible, I can't listen to it. They write good songs, but they write stuff that is radio friendly and they write stuff that is well constructed. It's just they have a stage presence like Ghost, like Slipknot. That's what it is.
But here's the thing though, if Mushroomhead takes that signing, I think it's the other way around. I think Slipknot's still here, they're still doing their thing, but I think they're the band in the background. I think Mushroomhead would be as big as Slipknot is right now if they took that thing. I think it would have changed the way it happened, and Slipknot would have been the band that everyone talks shit on because Mushroomhead gets so much shit talked on them, and I don't understand why. I fucking love that band. Their new record comes out in like a week. I can't fucking wait for it. I love that band, but it's like, what happens? I mean, does new metal hit the popularity it does without that Slipknot record?
So let me ask you this, Tim. What happens? We asked what if Slipknot isn't signed to Roadrunner? What if Slipknot does not go with Ross Robinson for that first album?
Oh.
I think they could still sign to Roadrunner. Without Ross, they don't get noticed. They get buried in the churn of just another new metal band, third wave.
They get buried in the who the fuck are these guys with these stupid masks and
right, and nine fucking people on stage. Yep.
Yeah, you're right, man. And I would love to get someone in Mushroomhead on and talk about that. Like, why didn't you guys fucking sign that deal? I mean, it's a life-changing deal. Them dudes are fucking multi-millionaires from that shit.
Yeah.
So I seen Mushroomhead. I was at a bar one night in Cleveland, sitting there having a beer, and like 8 dudes sat next to me. I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? And the bartender was like, oh, you getting ready for the show tonight? I looked over. I'm like, yo, are you guys in Mushroomhead? And they're like, yeah, how'd you know? I'm like, I just guessed because I'm here for your show. And we bullshitted for like an hour. Them dudes are cool as shit, but it's like they wouldn't be sitting at that bar with that Roadrunner deal. You know what I mean?
No. It would have been Slipknot, where the first time I saw them without their masks on, they were in the VIP section of the Roseland in New York City watching Machine Head play fucking Burning Red / Supercharger. Yeah, I think you're right. I think if they weren't signed to Roadrunner, they would have been an also ran. If they were signed to Roadrunner but didn't use Ross Robinson, They'd be another. They would probably be the embarrassing example of a third wave new metal band trying to do too much, right?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
masked jumpsuit, the 9 members, the insanity, and it would not have been the thing that it became. They literally hit lightning in a bottle with both Roadrunner and Ross simultaneously.
Absolutely, yeah. Ross doesn't get that fucking credit he deserves, man.
Now,
He's another dude we should get on.
And the kicker, yeah, we should fucking let's find Ross Robinson. And the kicker is after this, Ross goes on to do Glassjaw, and then he basically gets away from new metal and does the Blood Brothers, At the Drive-In, all that other fucking zany, skronky shit that makes me want to rip my own fucking eyeballs out.
Awful shit.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I went and listened to everything he did, and I was like, I want to pull my hair out if I had any. It's just
and
awful.
We did the Ross Robinson deep dive, and there was a giant chunk of shit where we're like, I'm not revisiting that one.
Awful shit, yeah.
All right, so I think that just about wraps up all the questions we have here. So
we got one more.
Oh, we do? What did I miss?
What if Deftones don't sign to Maverick? What happens with them?
So if they don't sign to Maverick, what
happens? Who would have took them? Would it have been Roadrunner?
It probably would have been Roadrunner because Ross would have said, hey, I came across this band in California. However, though, that means that now let's talk about dominoes. So if they don't sign to Maverick, they sign to Roadrunner. If they sign to Roadrunner, it's because of Ross. If they sign to Roadrunner because of Ross, they sound more like Fire, the last song on the album, which means that they probably get lumped in and get lost in the shuffle of new metal because they didn't get the chance to organically grow into the band that they become.
Exactly. You just answered exactly what I was going to say. So
that's my 2 cents. I mean,
that is my 2 cents also. That's exactly what I would have said, or I was going to say.
I think that's what would have happened. They would have just been lost in the shuffle. They would have been one of those bands like, and we talked about a bunch of Ross bands that got signed that didn't go anywhere. Like Amen never went anywhere. Not really. 3 albums, but they really didn't get the notoriety that I think Ross would have liked. You have a band like Human Waste Project with Amy Echo as a singer who was very unique, but they never got the recognition that they deserved. I think they would have just been an also-ran.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think we can end it there.
That's about the best way to do it. So once again, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Tim for his time, first of all, as we both sit here and get drunk in our respective basements. I want to thank all of you listeners for tuning in again. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We have a Facebook group, which is getting lively. Both Tim and I are on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel, so we're going to put some video out for this podcast so you can see what we, Tim and I both look like repulsively in person. And again, if you like our takes, if you don't like our takes, if you think they're spot on, if you think they're shit, let us know. newbreedpodcast@gmail.com. We are curious to hear what everybody's thoughts are. If you got a hot take, we're going to get you on the fucking show and we're going to argue about it. Maybe we throw a beer at the screen. Maybe we really like what you have to say. Who knows? Tim, any final thoughts?
No. Great episode.
Fantastic. All right. So once again, for Tim and myself, I want to thank all of you for listening. This is the New Breed Podcast. We will see you next episode.
Later.